Hello everybody, good afternoon. Beautiful day here at Carrow Road. The sun is shining. Domestic football is back after an international break that saw England battle past Albania and Latvia. I'm sure they were all games that all of us consumed. And Norwich City return this afternoon with a game against West Bromwich Albion. Very slim chance of the top six now from their position. But funny things have happened, and we, of course, will follow it to the bitter end, irrespective of what happens. West Brom clearly in a much better position in the top six, but haven't won in any of their last 11 on the road. A lot of draws this season, 10, which is the most of any side. So just to consider before we get to team prediction or score predictions later on, Paddy. Got a minute or so until that team news drops.
Yeah.
Fair to say that there's likely to be a surprise in there.
Is there, Connor?
I think there might be.
Is there going to be a surprise? Yeah, I'm just looking at the league table where West Brom sit. Won't mention my boys yesterday evening, but yes, a surprise I think there will be. And
here we go, actually. Go on.
Tell us what surprises.
So here we go. This is how Norwich City line up this afternoon. Gunning goals, Stacey, Duffy, Cordoba and Fisher are the back four. Sorenson, McLean and Slimani presented as a midfield three with Sienat, Sainz and Sargent up front. The subs bench this afternoon: Long, McConville, Wright, Nunez, Schwartau, Forson, Hernandez, Jurasek and Marcondes. No Callum Doyle. We believe that is injury related, calf injury to be precise, and we'll see what more Johannes can say on that. But clearly at this stage of the season, whenever anyone gets an injury, the fear is, of course, that they will miss the remainder of the season. But hopefully that's not the case, and we'll see what he says after the game. So just to run through that for you again: no Callum Doyle for Norwich City. Gunning goals: Stacey, Duffy, Cordoba and Fisher. Sorenson, McLean, Slimani, Sienats, Sainz and Sargent. Clearly losing Callum Doyle at any stage, given how consistent he's been this season, how much trust Giannis Oftarup has put into him, is a big blow for Norwich City.
Well, it's the latest, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, you're almost blasé about it now. Yeah, Giannis will confirm after the game, but timescale-wise, we'll find out a little bit more about that as well. I don't think we're going to be seeing him any time in the next 2 to 3 weeks, maybe longer. So you roll on. You know, no Mahovo again today, so be interested what they do in terms of the defensive structure. You know, Sorensen being the wild card there. I mean, we saw against Bristol, you know, he was deployed at the start of the second half in a back three. Do we see that? Do we see them, as you reeled it off there? We'll know soon enough. But on Doyle, yes and no. I mean, you probably want him still in the side, but we know the situation. He's a Man City player. I think the playoffs have gone. I was asked on the Q&A on Monday, you know, do you play him now? I'd said no. I'd probably pivot because he's not going to be here next season, unlikely, I think. So what's to be achieved by playing him? But that decision's obviously been taken out of their hands a little bit, and yeah, it just continues the theme, doesn't it, really? And also for me, I mean, that we kind of knew about that prior to the confirmation of the news. But no Nunez again. I cannot fathom why.
Or Marcondes on the bench.
Yeah, but certainly Nunez. Why are we not at a stage now with Nunez on this latest fitness cycle that he can't be starting games? It just seems, with 8 games to go, I don't understand that at all. He's the best of his type in this squad, the best at implementing for me what Torrop wants to do in terms of ball progression. We saw here the best result of the last patchy 6 or 7 games. Stoke here, Sunshine, Carrow Road, 4-2. He ran the show for an hour. So a bigger talking point for me is no Nunez on the starting lineup.
Yes, indeed. And yeah, considering he hasn't been away with Chile as well over the last 2 weeks, he's been in the building and been able to work on stuff likewise, Marcondes. And after a 2-week break, if those guys are still not ready to go from the start, and that maybe it's a tactical decision, we don't know, but that would certainly be an eyebrow raiser if that is the case. In terms of the shape then, Pad, I mean, the way the club have presented it looks like the bog standard 4-3-3, which we have seen. Clearly, Norwich ended the game at Bristol City in a back three, of which Sorensen was part. I think that's worth adding. So is there a potential that is paper a 4-3 slides into a back three with wing backs, particularly given Jack Stacey's inclusion in the team? We know how aggressive and advanced he is, combined with maybe what we've seen from Kellen Fisher in recent weeks.
I can see it. Yeah, I can see it because we've seen it most recently at Bristol, and I know that was a in-game chasing a game. But if you look at how that second half panned out, you know, Norwich had a fair degree of control. Certainly Norwich were the aggressors. You could argue Bristol with 2 goals to the good were a little bit more reserved and in containment mode. But there was no doubt Norwich looked better on the ball. They had more concerted possession. But as I say, we will find out in due course. But I won't be at all surprised if it is Sorenson in a back three with obviously Duffy and Cordoba, flanked by Stacey and Fisher. And that will be within, not rigid, but in what we've seen from Torop, that is quite a departure now to be starting games with a back three, if it is a back three. We'll put that caveat in. So is that needs must? Is that he's now starting to think about next season now and what it looks like and maybe where they can be more effective and not just on the ball, but crucially off the ball, which I think for me now is the real acid test of this head coach, this coaching staff, and whatever group of players we have going into the new season. It's not what they do on the ball. The metrics tell you that is very effective at this level. It's what they are not doing outside of possession. And if that is a 3 today, we'll see if that's any better in terms of off the ball as opposed to on the ball.
Yeah, Slimani clearly was very good here in the first half against Sheffield Wednesday. I think since he signed permanently, since he come back from this injury, maybe hasn't quite found his stride yet. I think that's the case. You mentioned Nunez, Marcondes as well. Jacob Wright, another one we can put on the table. Someone who I think we've seen some pretty good performances from him. Didn't start at Bristol City. Hasn't started today. That feels a little bit of an eyebrow raiser, particularly given obviously Jakob Sorenson's inclusion. We know his contractual status and where he's at in terms of his own cycle. So some very interesting calls in that midfield area. Yeah,
I mean you flagged right there, and that is in the context of there's a player they've got on loan. There's a potential buy option, but he's come here to play regular football, and obviously it's not going to notice there was those links to Preston, wasn't there, a week or two back. And if it comes down to trying to convince that man that his future lies here next season, then you would have thought one of the factors in play will be how many minutes he's getting. And from going from a position where it looked like he was just on the cusp of becoming a regular in the 3, he's now been out of the side for the last 2 games. So that, again, is a very strange call, it seems, in the here and now, because he was starting to show what he's all about on the ball. But in the broader, bigger picture stuff, because it wasn't that long ago, Johannes said quite clearly, I want that guy in the building next season. They chased him for a period of time. They got him in. He is a different type of profile central midfielder. And yet here we are. And he's missing out again for other options. So for me, more questions than answers in that starting lineup, if I'm honest.
Yes, indeed. Let's look at on the bench and we'll speak about perhaps some of the returning player in the starting lineup in a moment. But Matej Jurasek back in and back on the bench after this sort of bizarre period that he's had of trying to build him up and not being involved in first team involvement at all. Hasn't been in squads, has not really been training. It's clearly been about building his body up to get him to a stage where he can play Championship football. And we haven't seen him since Hull, which feels like a long time ago now.
Yeah, it does. It certainly does, and that is a welcome name on the 20 because that was inevitably opening him up to a fair degree of scrutiny. I think it's safe to say, to being diplomatic about it. A player they pushed hard for. We understand that he's one they thought for next season, fine, but you managed to get him in. We got through the red tape regulations element of what delayed his arrival, and then, as you rightly say, Connor, I think it was 25 minutes or so in the game before here. It was a start at Hull. I think he played 65, 70 minutes, and then we haven't seen him again. And, building up, and fair enough, he had a slight, was it thigh, I think he said. Yeah. But thereafter, to build him up, and, it just feeds the narrative that there's some serious under-the-bonnet work needs to be done, I think, in terms of managing these players and the recovery and the fitness and the ability to get them on the park and playing consistently and the robustness to handle the Championship and what it's all about. But, that's for pre-season onwards now. In the here and now, it's good to see him on the bench. And if the game dictates, he came with quite a big reputation, certainly for Norwich, a big price tag. And you'd like to start to see a little bit, while knowing that it's probably next season before you start to really judge him. But it wouldn't help to see him impact positively the rest of this season for Norwich.
Yeah, agreed. When you look at this team, certainly my view at the moment is it feels like a real push and pull at the moment between kind of old and new, and it feels a little bit conflicted between the two, which I guess is understandable. As you say, still year one of this, I suppose. And there will be lots of people watching this, and particularly around Sorenson and I guess Angus Gunn potentially as well, and others. Doyle, if he'd have been available. It creates that conversation of at what stage do you look to turn the page, if at all. what do you make of it? Because clearly, if you're Johannes Torup, you can't then just play a load of youngsters that you think might be involved last year, lose games, and then take all the stick that's going to come. So, is it a little bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't type of situation for him? Do you feel?
Well, I mean, they're the cards they've got to play now. They've from a position where not that many matches ago they were really in justifiably in contention for the top 6. They've let it slip, and in many of those games, without going back over them, their own self-inflicted errors. So that now leads them to this stage. Have you mapped out there, Connor? You've got, I don't want to say 8 dead rubbers, but the playoffs have gone. So irrespective of what he says yesterday, or Thursday, but
he has to say that, though.
Of course, he's not going to say anything else, is he? But and we've reiterated it in numerous podcasts of late. The playoffs may have gone, but this 8 games cannot be written off because it affects, for me, the mood going into the summer and beyond, and the levels of optimism that his fan base can have. That yes, they know the summer, and again, he reiterated at Colney, it's going to be a busy summer in terms of the transfer window. But you'd want to see enough evidence of those already in the building that, okay, next season, they with the right additions, they can be far better than they have been this season in terms of that consistency and a genuine top 6 contender. So with that in mind, that's the balancing act. Do you tip too far in terms of your player selection, or do you try and win a few of these games, which I think he has to do now because they're coming off a period where they haven't won enough games, and that's why the reaction to this team news is as it is. There's very little leeway at the minute because they haven't really got enough credit in the bank for me in the last block of 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, and it's clearly, if you think back to maybe the last time they were in this predicament in terms of a multi-year project and mid-table in year one, we go back to that a lot. But the first Farke year, I mean, Maddison played right up to the end until he got injured. Harrison Reed did, Angus Gunn did. So the past shows that actually, Daniel Farke in a similar predicament stuck with the players that he had in that group. But you can equally understand why maybe people want to see more of the likes of McConville, Wright, Schwartau, maybe even a Forson, Jurasek. You can understand from a fan perspective why you'd want to see those guys.
Well, you would do, because not in all those cases, but majority of those, they are the future. They are here. They are signed on. They will be here next season and beyond. And as we said, some of the older players, Sorenson's contractual status, Duffy will be 12 months out from the end of his deal. It feels like the wheel may be turning. So, but if you're Giannis, I guess in the here and now, those players are all part of his squad, and he will today have looked at the best 11 in his opinion to win a game of football against a team who are really in the race for the top 6. That's his only measure. I'm sure he's not thinking, as you've mapped out there, mid to longer term for him. It's about, particularly off, as we just pointed out, at the back of pretty poor running results terms, certainly. They need to get a win from somewhere for me today, and he's paid to make these big decisions. In his opinion, that is the 11 that can at least set the game up, and then you've got game changers if required from the bench. But, is Jakob Sorensen the future? No. Could Jacob Wright be? Yes. Likewise McConville, likewise Duffy. But again, and we've seen it when he was forced to do it earlier parts of the season, if you just go wholesale young, you get found out in this league, and you'll get found out by a West Brom team who are one of the better sides in this division. So that's the balancing act that he's trying to sort of navigate, really, because you can't simply say, right, okay, the page starts to be turned now and we're just going to go with youth, because for me that would be a recipe for another 8 pretty uncomfortable watches, I think.
Agreed. Right, let's bring you the West Brom team, because we haven't brought you that here yet. This is how they line up. Wildsmith in goal, Styles, Hagan, Bartley and Holgate, the back 4. Malumbi, Mowat and Swift, the midfield 3. Fellows, who's very good at this level. Carlin Grant on the left, and Adam Armstrong up front as well. Their subs bench: Josh Griffiths, Grady Diangana, Daryl DK, Osman Diakite, Will Lankshire, Isaac Price, Mikey Johnston, Gianluca Frambotta and Tama Bani, who I believe they signed on deadline day. So that's how they line up. And going to be an interesting test, this, Paddy, isn't it? Because clearly the boat that Norwich are in, and mathematically they're not out of it. So, but I agree with you. I think it is gone. West Brom very much are in it. 6th place at the moment. Their away form hasn't been great. It's been okay. They've drawn a lot of games on the road this season, and in general, really, but particularly on the road. Tony Mowbray yet to win on the road as West Brom manager. Given Cov's result as well, to bring that into it, it feels like a really big opportunity for them, and I'm sure they will see it as such today.
Yeah, I mean, you've got, if you look at the league table there, you've got Cov, West Brom, Bristol City. They seem to be vying for 5th/6th. Certainly they're the lead in principles. Cov have got beat last night. I think Bristol City are at Burnley today,
Correct.
which given Sheffield United's win, Burnley need to respond. So if you're West Brom, you're looking at it and you're thinking, well, it's unlikely. I think Bristol go there and get a win. So that's all the motivation they need. A win today really tightens it up and, tilts it back in their favour to a degree. So they won't lack the motivation today. And just as you're listing those players there, and it was proven at the Hawthorns. I thought they had some very good players in attacking areas. And in fact, and it's not beyond the realms, he does it again today. He actually switched Fisher to the left that side to deal with Fellows, or try to deal with him, because he was very hot at the start of the season. Him and Sainz were the standout players in the Championship start of the season. So, yeah, I think this is the tall order today, if I'm honest, because you've got, much like Bristol City, if we're being honest, a squad of players, a head coach, and an 11, probably certainly further along than Torrup and the Norwich collective, and that proved the difference at Ashton Gate. I thought, you had a cohesive group of players who knew exactly what they were doing, knew how to exploit Norwich's weaknesses, and I fear it'll be the same today, if I'm honest. I think West Brom will come here and probably get the job done.
Just going to flash this up from Jason. The amount of games Sorenson has played lately, now fit, suggests he might get one more year. Thoughts? I mean, it's hard to disagree with that, isn't it?
Well, absolutely, yeah. I mean, that was, for me, the deciding factor that should have gone against him this time last year, that he didn't play enough games. But that point is absolutely correct. He's played a lot of starts, a lot of 90s as well. Funny that, isn't it? Well, when there's a contract on the cusp, that's all I'm going to say. He's fit to play, isn't he? But there you go.
I think that was the case last time as well.
It's funny that. So if Norwich decide that because the reality is, and we just talked about it on the previous segment, I don't see any world where Norwich get themselves into being genuine top 6 contenders if they just stack with teenagers and early 20s. You are going to, and we've talked about it liberally, the gap in that mid 20 age range in the squad, there is one. He ticks a box there, and I'm not saying that's the only reason you keep him, but surely in a squad makeover, you still need.
It's just not fit enough for me.
Look, well,
he's got to be available.
He shouldn't be here this season for me, so that applies equally for next season. What I'm saying is, if it's not him, you're surely going to have to look to bring in players in his age profile. And the fact that he's starting him, the fact that he trusts him to start him, the fact that he maybe trusts him to play in slightly different roles as well, not just midfield. That versatility, sometimes it's a dirty word, but in any given squad at this level, the amount of games you play, that versatility is not to be sneezed at. So, I can see a scenario to follow up that question that he does get an option extended. If it was me, no, I wouldn't be looking to extend his contract.
No, I agree. I guess you could see why, as a squad option, if he was fit and available every week, I wouldn't have any qualms. As a regular starter, I think it sounds harsh, but I think it's going to be difficult for Norwich to really progress and make progress if he's playing consistently. Not a slight against him. I think it's you just want and hope that they can maybe be a little bit more aspirational in terms of what they could do in that area of the pitch. But yeah, I can understand why and take your points completely on that front. Let's go to how we see this game going. Clearly going to be a difficult test. First of 8 games left. We're on the home straight of the Championship now. There's some tough ones in this run, starting today. Obviously Plymouth next week, which is geographically tough, but they sit bottom of the league. They're going to be fighting against their lives. You wouldn't imagine that would be an easy one either. I think they've got that was 0-0 at Watford. I don't know how it's finished. Sunderland to come, Burnley to come, Middlesbrough to come, Millwall away to come. I mean, it's a pretty tricky end to the season that Norwich City have got.
Well, it is, but that's the Championship, isn't it? So, and we'll find out a little bit more about Torrup and his coaching staff and these players over what remains of this season. I mean, while I think West Brom probably will edge it, I wouldn't be at all surprised if Norwich do come out today, because you got that underlying sense from Torrup's presser the other day that he feels they need a win just to re-energise a little bit maybe that mood amongst the fan base and sort of be a bit more optimistic going into the final swing of games, irrespective of whether the playoff picture and how that looks. So I can see Norwich and West Brom. You touched on it right at the start. West Brom are a draw specialists, so they don't necessarily roll teams over.
Don't score a lot, don't
you? No, but you fear that, particularly if there's a defensive reorganisation there, that they will just have, and they've got some very good attacking players who could maybe exploit any disorganisation there, that given their motivation is probably going to be far greater than Norwich's within the playoff scenario, then I think they might just edge it 2-1. But will I be surprised if Norwich get a result? No, not today.
Well, I was feeling nice and upbeat this morning. The sun was shining. I was thinking, oh, it's going to be a lovely day for football. And I'm going to stay in that place, I think. For my own sanity, I'm going to say Norwich to edge it today. But I think you've mapped out a scenario that I could very much see happening. I think given the circumstances, as you say, it feels like everybody could do with a win. I think fan base, players, tore up everyone, I think. So you hope that international break has been put to good use and they come out and get a win. So I'm going to go 2-1 Norwich this afternoon. Whatever happens, we will have it covered. Pinken.com, of course, the place to go. You can join us on our app as well. Subscriptions, find out more at Pinken.com about those if you're not already signed up. I'll be on the live blog this afternoon. This man will be speaking to Yanis off Torop after the game on Callum Doyle and all the latest lines. I'm sure he'll be putting some of those midfield situations to him. And, of course, we'll have all the reaction and analysis to this game as well. If you come into Carrow Road, bring a sun hat. That's what I'd recommend, because particularly if you're in the Barclay, because you're going to be staring into the sunshine, and hopefully it's a day that matches the weather. Thanks for watching. See you soon.